Welcome back to Feel Good Breakfast Show. This is Expresso, you're live in S3, and we have to set the tone for you because no man is an island. But with the increased time spent at home, brought about by the actual pandemic, we often feel isolated from the rest of the world, and I think that you can definitely relate.
That's right. Now, you may feel worried or anxious about your finances or your job, your health, your relationship with your significant other, or those close to you, but perhaps you feel bored, frustrated, or even lonely despite being surrounded by friends and family.
And this is why today we discuss mental health as it relates to being isolated at home. Our panel consists of motivational speaker Dr. Steve Harris, a life coach, Sally Bingham, mom and influencer Babawa Katriso, as well as Lindile, who is always on our couch ready to go. In fact, this is her favorite time of the morning to do any sort of conversations. I mean, she told me earlier, Slee was like, this is the time you wake me up, call, let's have a chat.
Oh, there we go. And of course, you at home, we encourage you to join in on this conversation. Let us know, how do you balance work and home life when working from home? Please send us your WhatsApp voice notes. That number to remember is 063 408 8863.
Okay, so we have a panel of 4 people. So we have to spread the questions. However, we can also but first and foremost, welcome. Hey, what a beautiful morning it is.
What a beautiful panel that we have.
We do have a beautiful panel. I was actually chatting to our panel, Zoe, a little earlier, and I said to them that gratitude is my caffeine. And I think that's something that I believe is so important to start to set the scene. So it's great to have each and every one of you. This is a vitally important conversation. But I think we have to start with Sally, because with regard to being at home for extended periods, we found ourselves being in a place that was, of course, comfortable. However, that comfort sense, it seeps into the bones, doesn't it? It makes you feel very comfortable. So much so that you almost become a recluse and you believe that there's nothing out there when you have everything you need at home. What has that been in terms of an influence on somebody's idea of the world out there, idea of themselves, idea of, where they should be, their motivation? How has that affected individuals being at home for extended periods?
I think we're hardwired for connection.
Yeah.
And I think being at home, as you've mentioned, we've become quite isolated and reclusive.
Yeah.
And I think what we also forget is we're hardwired for connection, not just with people, but with the world out there, with activities, engagement in life, and so on. And then we, as you say, we feel comfortable.
Yes.
But then we wake up one day and we think, actually, maybe this isn't so comfortable, but it's what we know. And to move out of that comfort zone into a place where we do wake up in the morning and think there's a reason for me getting out of bed in the morning.
Yes.
Sorry to mention getting out of bed in the morning.
Sleep?
Yes, sleep, all of that sort of thing. So there's a lovely term called ikigai. It's a Japanese term.
Yes, I know this.
Ikigai. What do you love to do? What are you good at? What would the world pay you for? And what does the world need? And so sometimes we just need to stop, reflect, and go, okay, so what does the world need? And also make a choice, an active choice. We can stay in our sort of
it's a good
state.
position. It's my
that state for the rest of our lives, or we can make a choice and think, this doesn't really work for me. Okay, so what choice am I going to make to change this feeling of a bit like dullness around life?
Very true.
And I think a lot of people are now going through that turmoil. It's a season of change, and I think also the season that we're in terms of the cold weather is helping us to really fight that, or at least for me it feels that way. But Balwa, I'm going to ask you this next question. As a mom and a career-focused woman, have you found that your home life balance has returned to what it was pre-COVID, or have you had to make major adjustments in your household?
Yeah, so with us, we've had to make a lot of major adjustments because pre-COVID, both our kids were not in school. And for them, waking up in the morning and us having to leave work to go to work was what they saw. So now all of a sudden, we're working from home, and to them, us being at home is mainly like, oh, mom and dad are at home, so it's playtime. So we had to make a lot of adjustments by getting them into school. Both our kids now are in school.
Yeah.
So that they know that, okay, morning we wake up, go to school, and then us work from home. And we've actually also had to start working from home on a full-time basis now because we found that being at home and working from home is actually more productive than us having to drive to the office. So a lot has actually really changed, and we had to make a lot of adjustments in terms of our routine at home, getting the kids ready for school in the morning, and yeah.
You know, you spoke about routine,
Yes.
and routine is interesting because routine is something that really kind of, it's also a safe place if you think about it. It's a place where we can, you know that you're moving forward and doing things. But Dr. Steve, in your capacity, because I know you're all about, when it comes to, you know, motivation, it's important to fuel yourself with the right type of, you know, self-talk. But sometimes we get to a place where we actually fool ourselves into believing that we are in a healthy holding pattern while we're at home. What are some of the pitfalls when it comes to us talking to ourselves, thinking that I'm at home, I'm not bothering anybody, the world should be fine with me being here alone or in this little holding pattern of mine?
That's a good question. Which is my teleprompter?
Oh, it's me. I'm going to tell you what to say.
You can, I won't. This is the thing that...
Speak from the heart. I know you can. Yeah, speak. Okay. That's what we do.
Look, I'm going to speak from a mental toughness perspective.
Yes.
And it's the kind of knee-jerk space I try to occupy.
Yeah.
Which is you take yourself wherever you go. You know, wherever you are, if you've got a healthy mindset,
Yes.
doesn't matter whether at home, on a business trip, or wherever you are, you will engage in healthy activities. You'll eat properly, you'll exercise in your bedroom if there's nowhere else. So I don't know if we should indulge that feeling that now I'm at home, I can be slap. You know, you're the same person.
Yes.
So if you're claiming you're healthy and you have healthy habits, you'll do it everywhere. It's not easy, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, but to exercise properly, to be decent to others, to eat decently or properly is just, you take yourself wherever you go. You move towards thriving. You try and get away from this failing, surviving mindset. And it becomes instinctive with you if you developed your mental toughness.
Yeah.
And it's not some sort of, you know, you're going to, some sort of hunter-gatherer mental You just know that, hang on, there's the right thing to do here. I must stay healthy and not become a burden to others. So that's...
Love it. There was no teleprompter for that, by the way.
No,
That
there was.
perfect.
There was.
Slee, how important is it for us to create those boundaries when it comes to our work and our home life, especially for families that are now working full-time from home? And what impact does it have if if those boundaries aren't in place on your mental health?
Yeah. I think it's crucially important to be able to develop those boundaries, because really it's what holds you in place. It's what gives you a sense of structure and continuity. So it's very important to know, when does work begin? When does work end? When does my personal life begin and end? But there has been a lot of, blurring of boundaries that's happened when people have worked from home, and it can be extremely difficult. So when there is a blurring, you see things like, home life then becomes a distraction to your work life, because now you think about the dishes in the kitchen, the laundry that's not done. And then under normal work circumstances, you wouldn't be. You'd be physically in a different environment and doing something else. So it's very important to create those boundaries and maintain them. I think in the absence of boundaries, work can become very tedious, because there can be that blurring, and you can be so distracted and overwhelmed with everything that's going on around you.
Okay.
This is great. There was a good intro to the discussion, but if you have any questions, remember 06340888863 if you've got any questions. But we're going to try and flush out some of those interesting poor mental health choices we make at home with our panel of excellent individuals and experts. So if you have any questions, throw it to the WhatsApp line, and we'll be very, very happy to answer it on your Feel Good Breakfast Show.
It's my Feel Good Breakfast Show.
Back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. This is Expresso live on S3. I know you're wondering, what are you talking about, Carl? Well, we're back to our discussion. It's about mental health in the home and featuring our panel of esteemed experts. Now, let me tell you, Dr. Steve Harris is here without a teleprompter. He knows exactly what to say. Freestyling for us. We've got Babalwa Kagiso as well, Sally Bingham, and then, of course, our resident clinical psychologist, Slindile Mbata, to get you ready for this particular conversation. Earlier, we explored some of the negative effects of extended periods at home on our well-being, as we delve a little deeper into that discussion now by focusing on our relationships and relationship patterns with our family and significant others in the home. We encourage you at home to join the discussion and share your thoughts, your experiences, maybe questions as well. As always, we have a WhatsApp line number for you, 063 408 8863, as we continue with our panel of experts. Now, let's go straight in to when it comes to relationships in the home. These have been dynamic. They've been changed. They've been edited by the experience. It happens to everybody. If you think about trying to keep your family mentally fit, and Babal, I actually want to start with you with regard to your family unit. You know, the well-being that you have to help support, some of the emotional responsibility here and there that you have to keep up where somebody is falling short a little bit. This is all within the scope of your skill set, but of course your responsibility in the home. How has that been for you to try and make sure that the relationships between, you know, significant other and kids has that been able to, how have you been able to actually build the scaffolding around that to try and make sure it stays steady?
I'm not going to lie, it really has been very challenging.
Yes.
Being a mom, having to be like present and also doing social media content creation is not like another job where you have a 9 to 5, you wake up in the morning, you leave and go home to work.
Yeah.
Being a social media content creator means that like social media doesn't close. It doesn't shut down. Like you're always on the go, you're always working.
Yeah.
So it's really been a challenge in terms of finding the balance between I'm a mom here at home, I'm a wife as well as an employee and an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So it has to be, like it took me some time in finding what is the right way of managing all the different roles. Like also just planning everything, making sure that I have time for my kids, I have time for my husband, I have time for work, and I have time for myself.
Yes.
So for me, a very important thing for me to be able to play all of those roles was to be able to have time for myself to say, I'm actually really tired, and you can't really pour out of an empty cup. So just managing time and planning time, like scheduling everything that we do around the family. Our diary has been something that has been super helpful for us, like in terms of even doing social activities. I'll put it in my husband's diary to say, okay, so Sunday is the whole day that we're spending with the kids. Monday, we're attending an event.
Nice.
So what's really helped me is just having a balance throughout everything and making sure that I use like the diary to plan even spending time with the kids and also spending time with each other as well as spending time by myself.
So that's I love that idea. Like, you know, I know it sounds like scheduling a family, it sounds so cold, but sometimes with everything that you're juggling, you know, you have to as well.
Yeah.
Sally, I want to go to you for a second because, you know, you mentioned, Babal, around, you know, you still have time for your husband. And while you're being all these roles, there's still a relationship, a romance to keep up with regard to your significant other. So how do we, you know, mitigate some of the factors around the relationship changing to a point where you're just trying to keep the kids ready, steady? But what about that fire between you and your partner? What about that initial sort of thing that got you together? You know, sometimes it's actually very, very easy to lose sight of why the two of you are in each other's lives because you're busy trying to keep up an entire household. How do we navigate that?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things is communication. And two tips around that is actually stopping to think, what am I feeling?
Yeah.
And then being, in a sense, brave enough to be honest about how you are feeling.
Yes.
And when we're having chats that maybe there's a frustration or irritation around something, to be able to express from the I position, not you drove me crazy, you never wash up the dishes, you know, I'm always doing this. So it just puts people in the defensive position.
Yeah.
But rather to say, I feel, and to identify your feelings. And I think honesty in communication, which takes courage.
It does. It really does.
Yeah. And I think just to add to that is just to be, I think this is quite useful. The Gottman Institute, Julie and John Gottman, have done some research into what are the predictors of failed relationships. And I think this goes for any relationship, but they particularly look at partnerships.
Yes.
And the one is contempt. And the opposite of contempt is really kind of being kind to one another. The other is criticism. And these are questions we could almost ask ourselves. How critical am I versus how much do I appreciate my partner?
Yes.
You know, how much contempt? You know, that like, oh, that sort of a look, you know, it's sort of talking down to somebody. Am I doing that? Or am I looking for what is good and being kind? The other thing is defensiveness.
Yeah.
I asked you to take out the rubbish and you didn't take out the rubbish.
Yes.
And then you go, oh, well, there were a whole lot of reasons why, you know, last night I cleaned up the kitchen and, you know, I had to read the stories to the kids and whatever. So that's defensiveness, which breaks down relationships rather than taking responsibility. And I think the fourth thing is, in terms of maintaining our relationship, is not stonewalling. You know, that giving somebody the silent treatment.
Yeah.
But rather actually figuring out what's going on for me. And in a healthy way, say, again, going into the eye and being honest, saying what's going on for you and trying to communicate rather than backing off.
Communication in that relationship it's important. It's said all the time. However, we will get back to this conversation with Dr. Stephen Slee as well with regard to how we can actually nourish relationships in the home. But we also have to nourish our bodies, which is so important. This is why we got a bit of a fitness segment for you. Of course, Zoe is standing by with our resident fitness expert. It's going to get sweaty.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to Feel Good Breakfast Show, Expresso on S3. We're back to our discussion about mental health in the home, a vitally important subject, featuring our panel of experts. We've got Dr. Steve here, Babawa's here, Sally's here, as well as our resident clinical psychologist, Aslindile Mbata. Our experts are now standing by with ways we can be a bit more mindful and peace-oriented in the home, which is vitally important. Of course, you have a chance to message us with a voice note. Please do so, 063-408-8863. In fact, we've got a voice note now for our panel as we speak. Aisha, please take a listen, panel, to what Aisha has to say.
Morning, Expresso. So it's been really hard. My anxiety has gotten out of hand, so much so that I had to see my doctor. But I took my life back by eating better, working out, and then also learning to deal with my emotions. But it's still a work in progress.
So that's from Aisha. Aisha, thank you so much for your honesty there. I think it's so important for us to use our vulnerability as a communication language as well, which is so important. Let's go to the clinical psychologist on the panel. Stindele, if you heard what Aisha had to say there, you can still hear that the anxiety, it's present, but it's managed. For anybody who gets to, these spaces within the home, often it's not easy for you to actually communicate to your family it's going on when you are supposed to be the one that is sort of putting everything together. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, well, I think it can be difficult, like you said. But I mean, the most important thing is to recognize that, well, we're all just human beings.
Yes.
I think we're all going to experience some difficulty sooner or later, about, whatever the issue might be. So I think for one, just communicating, as we've been mentioning, just quite honestly about where it is that you're at, what it is that you're feeling, and possibly how it is that your family can assist in actually, helping to alleviate some of the anxieties that you have. But yeah, reaching out for professional help is very, very important. Aisha did mention that she went to a doctor,
yes,
to get some help for her anxiety. But there's a lot of mental health professionals around, who can actually assist in terms of managing one's anxiety, in terms of how to communicate if you're fearful of communicating around your anxiety, and also really understanding what is happening in your body, because sometimes we might think that we're still okay, and we can't read the signs. So you need to understand that sometimes what your body is doing is showing you where your mind is at as well. So that mind-body connection is crucially important. So I think just paying attention to that, what my body is doing, what my mindset is, the connection between the two, and how can I communicate this with my family.
Talking about communication, I think this segues beautifully to men. Gentlemen, when it comes to feelings and emotions, and you are part of a household unit, there's this archaic understanding that men need to be strong all the time. And I'd like to dump all of those rumors and those myths around that with you, Dr. Steve. When it comes to communicating your emotions in a home where you're supposed to be the stronger individual there, how do we break down those walls for any person who's watching, especially a male person, thinking that they have to be strong all the time, unable to get out of themselves and say that I need help, I'm struggling, I'm feeling weak? How do we start talking about that as men specifically?
Most men have been socialized into that condition that you have. And it's the awareness that you're socialized.
Yes.
It's not genetic or prescribed. And I guess it's the word metacognition. The ability to ask yourself, why do I think what I think? Why do I believe what I believe? Why do I believe I must be this Will Smith and smack Chris Rock?
Yeah.
You know, why? And that'll probably lessen the stressor. The stress response stays the same for males and females.
Yes.
The anxiety, the depression. Where males have a lead on it is suicide, because it has that effect on them. They seem to think, well, because I'm the breadwinner, I'm the this, I must take myself out. And it's so tragic.
It is.
At the end of the day, I don't want to bring a sad note to it, but that's the reality we face. Suicide is far too high, particularly among men.
Yeah.
So you're right. They take on the socially prescribed role.
And it's a role that shouldn't even exist.
Exactly.
You can talk about your feelings, your emotions.
Yeah.
I think that your vulnerability, you're actually sitting on your strength if you think about it. So please just, start talking. I know it says, easier said than done, but your family, they are around you and they will support you. Thank you for your support. You've sent through another message that has come through, and Rukeya has sent this. So let me just read this out to you. Rukeya says, good morning. I really love working from home. I start early in the morning, around about 6. Then at 6, I get the kids done. Then I start work at 8 again. I will work until 11. Start cleaning, cooking while I'm working. Once I take a break, I finish the food. When I'm done by 4, I can relax, all my chores done as well. I'm very disciplined. I can keep my mom life and my work life separated. Thank you, Rukeya. You are definitely a vision of somebody who's got the balance going. And as Babala mentioned earlier, there seems to be good scheduling within your life as well. But I think just a last thought from your side, Sally, just with regards to when these moments happen, when you are feeling very vulnerable at home. You're feeling like you need some room, some breathing room, some space from the people around you that you are supposed to be around all the time because you love them. How do we get out of that and actually say, I need a break, I need to let off some steam, I need some help?
I think it's just doing just that. It's stopping and realizing that you do have needs and figuring out what is the thing that makes you kind of get a little bit excited about life, what brings you alive.
Yes.
And that'll be different for all of us. And then I think we've talked about vulnerability and courage. It's being courageous enough to say, this is what I need. And in fact, to remind ourselves that when we do have needs, if we don't express them and we don't take care of ourselves, we're not going to be able to take care of the people around us long term. And that's what's important. We sometimes think, oh, it's a bit selfish to take care of my needs or to go and have time on my own or go for a walk with a friend, whatever.
Yeah.
But actually, when we don't do that, we don't have anything else. We eventually sort of are running on empty and we have nothing more to give. So just an encouragement to be kind to ourselves and to make time for feeding our souls. And we all know what that thing is for us. And if we've forgotten, then to stop and think, okay, so what were the things that I used to do that were like fun, that I sort of felt alive after doing? Yeah.
Beautiful. To the panel, Babalwa, Dr. Steve, Sally, and Slee, thank you so much for this vitally important conversation around mental health in the home. Remember, any other comments, send it through the Facebook page as well as our WhatsApp line. But thank you for listening. And remember, if you are feeling something, speak about it. You're not alone.